everybody to Integrate Yourself. I'm your host, Allison Pillow, and you can find me at pureenergypdx.com. Today, I'm here with a really special guest, Jamie Wollrab. He has been working professionally in the entertainment industry for over 20 years. He has founded three theater companies in Texas, New York, and Los Angeles, and has produced 3 feature films. He has been a part of over 100 theatrical productions, and for the last 10 years, he has been the head of voice and movement of Warner Laughlin Studios in Los Angeles. And he's also a proud member of the IAMA Theater Company. Jamie is an actor, director, writer, and producer. He's also an acting and voice coach. And so I'm really excited to have Jamie on today because he's not my typical guest. And I've been working with Jamie myself on a personal level. He's been helping me with some voice stuff and coaching. And we were just discussing how, some of this stuff is interesting because I've been in the self-help world for so long, and I'm just used to doing things like going down this path of self-help and kind of expecting these things to come up. But when you're actually getting coached in voice or acting, it's a little different. What I'm noticing is that these things just kind of come out of the blue and kind of you get triggered or whatever you want to call it, and things surface, and then it just brings things up that you weren't kind of expecting. And I wasn't even expecting for the shadow parts of me to come up so quickly from this, like a session that I would have never expected that to happen. So that was a really interesting thing. And with that, I want to welcome Jamie to the show. Jamie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. What an introduction. Like, who is this scary man that's coming on? That's great. No, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. And yeah, I mean, it's, what's really prevalent right now that's coming up for me in my own life and what it felt like, what you shared before we actually got onto the actual podcast about being triggered. It reminds me of Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap. And, every time we grow, every time we're stepping into an upper limit, we have to be careful. We have to be conscious because it's going to bring up the opposite. So every time we get a raise, every time we get an amazing relationship, we get something that we've always wanted, our saboteur, the shadow, just through the work that I've done, it comes up. And there's a whole chapter in that book, which is such an amazing book, about all the people that, the study of the people that had won the lottery and how they ended up in jail or addicts or divorced, or they ended up squandering all their money because the self-worth of the light that came in, the energy that came in, they couldn't hold it. And so part of, working with you is and seeing, like, I really believe in your message and what you wanting to put out in the world and starting to open up those possibilities. The voice that says that's not safe, I'm not enough, is going to not trust the people that are kind of supporting you to grow.
Right.
Because no, I'm safe. I'm going to stay in my clamshell. It's nice and safe in here. I'm a turtle. I'm going to go into my little and fuck everybody for pushing me to do this. And so it's completely normal. So I'm used to that. And I love to hold that space because as that clears, we are only as light as we are dark. And to me, it's like our roots have to grow if our branches are going to extend.
Yes.
So I think that's important. And I think that shadow coming up for you, it's just my humble opinion, is really essential to hold the space for more abundance, more outreach, more connection that you're seeking.
Yeah, I agree, because the way I see it too is that if you aren't able to, I guess, go into the fear of extending yourself out to your potential or your possibilities for yourself, or even thinking about those things, how do you think, how do you expect that to happen for yourself? Like, it's not just going to happen, right, unless you put yourself out there more. So that's what we talked about too,
Mm,
and that was pretty scary for me as well.
mm.
But I think that it is really essential for even self growth, even if you're not wanting to, become an actor, or get, become famous, or write a book or whatever. I think it's still essential to put yourself out there if you wish to be seen, if you wish to be heard, for just those things, just the things that we just need on the fundamental level,
Mm.
from people, and that connection. So,
Well, I love what you're saying, because we don't necessarily, I love that. It's not about being famous. It's not about that. A big part of my job is working with actors. But I believe that we're all artists. And whether we're a personal trainer, or we're a self-help guru of some kind, a coach, that we can make art out of it. We can have our own particular style, our taste. We can make it artistic. We can make it beautiful. And so so many more people that I'm reaching. It's not about them being, an actor. It's really about finding their expression,
I love that.
finding their voice, finding their art, down to might be the font on their website. It might be the kind of camera they're using to shoot for their Instagram, or for some of their YouTube videos. And there's an aesthetic, there's a style that somebody like you has. And
Right.
that's part of my purpose in the world, is to help bring consciousness to the artists that I work with, and to the people that work in the conscious community, helping them find their expression and their art,
Yeah,
and the,
I
and the
love that.
way they tell their story, the way they express themselves, and how can they speak to people in a way that is a magnetic energy that brings people to them, rather than feeling less than or not heard. And I really feel that there's a bridge that's happening, and it's really exciting, actually.
Yeah, I agree. It excites me. I'm so lit up by this. This is exciting to, learn about, more creative ways you can express yourself. I feel like it's so healing for me on a personal level,
Mm.
and so with that, let's, I would love to kind of get more into the voice
Jump in,
aspect,
jump in.
because, um, I'm learning more about voice. This is a subject that I'm not, again, I'm very much a beginner in. So I would like to get more info from you today about,
Mhm.
like, how we can start using our voice to express ourselves more clearly. How can we get clear in our voice, I guess,
Mm.
because a lot of times people, like, even when I'm asking people to what their goals are, what their values are, they don't
Mm.
even know how to express that sometimes, what they're
Mm.
even wanting, right?
Mhm.
So how can we get closer to getting clear in our voice, in expression of wants, desires, needs, those kinds of things, goals?
Mm. I love this. I love this. Wow. This is a 5-hour subject. So let me see if I can just give
Where
a
to
few.
begin?
Where
Yeah.
do I begin? It's like, let there be light. Let's go back to, the Big Bang. Let's see. Let's break down into language first. In Greek, the etymology of um, per is through, sonar is sound, persona, our personality, is our sound.
Oh, yeah.
So who we are is our voice. That's actually our vibration. In Shakespeare's time, I've studied Shakespeare for years, and a mentor of mine, I like to give a shout out to him, Stuart Pearce, who is the head of Voice of the Globe in London, I think for 10 years. And he talks about when people went to go to the Globe to uh, to the play, they said, I'm going to go hear a play, not I'm going to go see a play.
Mm.
So for the majority of our history, the art wasn't necessarily a visual medium as it is now. Like our phones and everything's so visual. It's about what we look like. It's all these little snippets, and we've lost the art of oration. Everything are these, especially with our politicians today, they repeat these cliches, they repeat things, they pound it into our head rather than longer, complete sentences. The writers, Shaw, Oscar Wilde, Shakespeare, sometimes it'd be 4-line sentences. The thoughts were longer and more complex and more exciting. So having a voice is actually realizing, to me, is how felt we are from our voice. So it's interesting. Sometimes I have a very difficult time watching the news, because I'll do this. Actually, you can hear this on a podcast, where so many people talk from their head.
Mm-hmm.
So we're, in the news, I'm talking, and so I'm talking from my head, and I'm just talking from the head is fine, but I'm talking from my head right now, and I'm just giving you information. So if I want to talk to you in an informative way, it's like, okay, you need to eat this, and this is the ingredient, or you're giving me directions, so you're going to go down the street and you're going to take a right. So it's all informative.
Yeah.
But if I'm talking up here, which most people do because they don't want to feel, they just want to be in their head, I'm going to ultimately tune out. So through voice work, what I begin to do is I take the work of my head, and I ultimately want to become a little bit more embodied. I want to bring my voice actually down into my heart. So if I speak from my heart, can you feel it? Actually feel as I'm doing it?
Yeah.
It enters the heart. Even while you're in Northern California and I'm in Southern California, I'm feeling a connection to Allison right now. And hopefully I'm making a connection to your listeners through the vibration of my heart chakra, going out and sharing my feelings, my emotions, my power is, resonating through my chest, my heart. And I believe the rest of our call, if I can stay in my heart, you'll want to listen, because if I speak from the heart, it enters the heart. If I go back up to my head, it's not going to get past the ears, really.
Yeah.
You're only going to hear that. So beginning to have, what I would say to the listeners, how we begin is to just actually have a physical awareness. And, it's funny, I'm not always so, conscious and embodied, because, my fiance will see me like getting the Ben and Jerry's out of the, the freezer, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What? I don't." So my voice goes into my head. I'm like caught red-handed with my ice cream. No, I just think that I didn't know. I'm not. So I'm like bullshitting and lying, or my voice goes up into my head because I'm having to think. As opposed to in my life, if I can begin to, as I'm teaching, as I'm coaching, when I'm connecting, when I'm talking to my 5-month-old son, I fill my body with air. I connect. And I just start to feel, is my voice coming from my heart? And if I begin to just sensorially feel that, I don't know why, for me, I'm just 99% happier.
Yeah.
I feel more guided. I feel more connected. I feel heard. I'm listening better. I'm more relaxed. I'm more embodied. I'm not floating out of my, I'm not in a trauma response or defensive. I'll just say one story. I have a friend in my acting class who was mad at me, and he said, "Can I give you feedback?" And I was like, "Fuck this guy." And I took a breath and I said, "Let's have a call at 3. And I made sure I took a deep breath, because if he was going to say something that was going to hurt my feelings, and I listened, and I heard him, and I said, "Just open your heart, feel physically his voice, and take it into your heart." I felt so much love for him. I felt so much compassion, and I felt where he was right. And then I asked if, and I said, "Thank you, that makes sense." And I shared back, I said, "Could I give you some feedback of my experience?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "This blank, blankety blank hurt my feelings, and this is probably why I did X." And within 5 minutes, resolved.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, if I can live from here, if I speak from here, um, I find as though I'm in more of a vibrational match with my life.
Yeah.
Period.
That's beautiful. I love that. That's it sounds to me like we could all, the way most people could also use that in their lives is just to become more present for the people they love, to become better
Mm.
listeners, to take in and feel and have compassion for people that they're coming across every day, or the most important people in their lives, like including their children. Um, but it also sounds like to me that this might be the secret to the success of an actor, is to get into their body more instead of their head, right? Is that?
But that's what's been so incredible, is that my vocation and what I do and my training is as an actor. And I would say almost 2/3 of my clients now aren't actors.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They have their podcasts, they're public speakers, they're yoga teachers. I'm coaching a qigong master right now who is very soft spoken,
Mm-hmm.
and how he's like, well, I want to learn how to project, and so I'm helping, open up his voice so that he can be heard. And
Yeah.
so, and the one thing you said, which I would add to, which is, yes, we have more compassion for others, but through my experience, it's been, I'm having more compassion for myself.
Right.
And so as
Yeah.
I'm beginning to take my time, not react right away, breathe, find my vocal, I call it my heart note. I've learned that through Stuart, my heart note. As I have compassion for myself, it's impossible for me not to have compassion for others.
Yeah. That's a
But
great
but
point.
it starts with me. It starts with my instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tuning into yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That is beautiful. And that's something that you've also talked to me about practicing more of, and I've been working on that as well. The podcast certainly helps me practice that with people, and slowing down, because I think for me personally, I've been one of those people that really tries to say the right answer, or, you know, is always like one step ahead, of,
Mm-hmm.
and, or just a really fast paced person. Um, being in athletics, that kind of taught me to keep going, next step, right? Instead of just breathing into like what's going on now at this moment, taking it all in, enjoying it, and feeling it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think feeling it is so important, and
Mm-hmm.
that can be a really great also first step and practice for people who maybe are in a state of stress, in a state of anxiety, can't feel like they can't get a handle on their health, or their relationships. Could be maybe starting to feel and embody some of the emotions that are moving through.
Well, and I love what you just said, because it also, I just believe in an embodied way. There are parts of our bodies that are open
Mm-hmm.
constantly. It's always open. And when I work with somebody, I just said, no, where do you feel good? Where are you open? And they close their eyes and like, all right, my legs feel good. My hands feel good. And I'm like, okay, be conscious there, bring your awareness there. And now where are you closed? Where do you feel tightness? And okay, my throat, for instance, like my throat's shut down. And it's interesting. Oh, my throat was a little tingy. And then I just bring my mind into that part of me where I might be sad or I might be blocked. And I just bring my awareness to that part, and I just let it release.
Mm.
Because sometimes when people tell me to relax, I'm like, don't tell me to relax. It actually makes me tense when
Mm.
people tell me to relax. But when people, the teachers that I really revere, when they ask me to connect, the byproduct of the connection is relaxation.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
connect to the throat where you might feel a little tightness. Okay, connect to it. And from that connection, from that awareness, it lets go. Then emotions start coming out. So, I find that we don't even necessarily have to name the emotions, because once we do, it goes to our head. To me, it's just, can I create openness in my body? And then, and then the emotions happen to be the byproduct of that openness.
Mm-hmm. Right. I used to notice that a lot with clients. Well, it used to happen where they'd have these emotional, like they just start crying after they do some root chakra, exercises that I put them through.
Of course.
And then I realized that I probably should do it in a different setting than the gym. But, but it was really interesting. I just have these people just sobbing after they did some really slow hip lifting or pelvic tilting, and it was incredible what we hold in those areas, just so much emotion that we're just trying to like hold it together, but I think it's such a relief to be able to just let it go. But sometimes it can be scary for some people, I think,
Yeah, this ain't easy. and it's kind of the only way to fly, honestly.
Yeah, I think so.
It really is. And, it's so great to our listeners that before that you were like, you triggered me. And so what's interesting is that, to my point, and to your point, is that your emotions actually came later. Of how what your head said your emotions were. I should correct that. What your head said your emotions were, and what it made up about it, rather than what you were just feeling.
Right.
And that's, to me, is like been my 99% of my work, which is I say yes to all emotions, everyone's feelings. It's no matter what you're feeling, it's okay. It's how we feel about our feelings. That's the issue.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Does that make sense? That makes sense? It's like,
it's how we feel about our feelings. And sometimes it takes time, like you said. Like for me, I know sometimes I process things a little slower than others. Like sometimes it just needs like a day or two, or even a week sometimes, to really, for it to connect, sometimes happens right away. So it just depends. I guess it just depends on what it is, where it is, how deep it is, those kinds of things. Who knows?
I told you when you brought this up, I'm like, we're going to go down a rabbit hole. Like this is, and we could be talking about a trillion different things about, because to me, to take this back to your original question is, our voice is a vibration. It's our vibration. So it's being present physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically, and spiritually. And our voice is truly the one thing that happens inside of me and inside of you that actually comes out of our system and reverberates and affects another person. Anything else, we would have to literally come and touch them. That's amazing to me. So how I feel, how I am, that's why you can hear somebody's voice, because 90% of our communication is nonverbal. It's not the words, right? So through my intention, that's how liar detectors, all that stuff work. So to me, I just find it such an honor to have a voice. Yeah. Even being on this podcast right now, like the work that I've done, the sobriety, the love, what I'm doing, what's coming from my core is traveling out and hopefully affecting people in a beautiful way, as is yours.
Yeah.
That's our voice.
Right.
That's an incredibly powerful thing that we take for granted.
Yeah. And I have a question for you. Do you think that, and when you think about going back to what you said about coming from the head, do you think that we place so much importance on information in our society more than because kind of the way I'm starting to see it, I'm starting to hear it, is that is that it doesn't
Fake
matter so much
news,
what you
fake news.
say, it's how it feels, right? Sometimes,
Isn't that
right?
Maya
So,
Angelou? She said it, they won't remember what you said. They will remember how you made them feel. Maya Angelou.
yes.
It's one of my favorite quotes.
Oh, I
It's
love
true.
that. Yeah, I do love that. It is very true. I'm understanding it more to be very true, because if you think about, there's a lot of people who have good information out there, but the way they express it turns people off, right?
Yep. So it's funny. I have to give a big shout out to John Wineland, who's my coach, and been in his men's work for about 5 years, and he's an incredible men's coach and relationship coach. And look him up; he's amazing. So he was helping my partner and I through an argument or something, and he calls it the first stage in relationships. So our first stage is all of our childhood trauma, our stories, our BS, right? It's when we're in a fight, we're like, you always do this and you do that. And the arguments, that the talking heads. And men and women, we both do it. Or, gay couples, whatever. All couples do it. And he had her do something that was so incredible. He had her just walk in and throw a tantrum about how she felt. She's like, and I mean, it was like caveman language, cavewoman language. I knew exactly how she felt in 3 seconds. That would take her an hour of dialogue.
Right, right.
So, it's like sound is so much more potent than heady content.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, if you're mad at me, I just would rather feel you than hear you complain. And I will do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Rather
Yeah.
than, well, passive aggressiveness or that's voice, that's sound, that's me going, you know what that means.
Right.
Like,
Right.
hug me, feel good, right?
Yeah.
Done.
Right.
More than, well, I did the thing and it's all of a sudden, what do? We tune out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. Yeah.
So so back to your question, is it about the content? To me, it's about the vibration.
Yeah.
And that comes from a place that's so deep and that we all can relate to. We've all had a tantrum.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, I believe, wish we could still have one. And almost
Yeah.
all of my clients, I go, especially the ones that I trigger, and I'm like, okay, have a tantrum. You get 3 minutes to tell me off. It's amazing. It's really
Yeah.
therapeutic. It feels amazing. And it's a relief.
Yeah.
And us stuffing that down, we become kinked. Our sort of, I call the tube, the chakras, this tube that's basically goes from our tailbone through the top of our head, and our nervous system becomes kinked. And then our communication of how we really feel, it actually begins to get garbled the more we allow the tension and the suppression to take over our lives.
Yeah.
And the more we open that up and we express, because what's the opposite of depression?
Uh, the opposite is happiness. Yeah,
Nope.
but
Not in my
no,
opinion. Not in my opinion.
sadness.
No.
No. Okay. Anger. No.
Think of even the word. Think the word. Or
Depression.
depression or repression.
Repression. Oh,
What's the
okay. Gotcha.
opposite? What's the opposite?
I don't know.
Expression.
Oh, yes. I like that. Yeah.
So rather than trying to say to a depressed person, or repressed and depressed are usually synonymous for me, be happy, or that's the opposite. No, the opposite, and this is what we talked about earlier, which is bringing in the light is going to reveal the dark. If I can express that I'm in pain, if I can express that I'm scared,
Yeah.
if I'm expressed that I'm sad, and I express it, that's the relief.
Mm.
That's the voice. Because
Yeah.
sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is admit we're scared.
Right.
The most honest thing we can do is admit that we lied.
Yeah.
That's the liberation. And then there we create the space for the happiness, joy, bliss to come in. But that we can't bypass that.
Right. We
That's our
try.
voice. We speak the truth. Voice is fifth chakra. It's speaking the truth. It's saying how I feel. It might not be reality, but it's how I feel.
Yeah.
And so be able to say, I know that you're not trying to hurt me as my coach, and I know that you're not doing this, but I was mad at you. That's expression, or you triggered me, and I laugh because I heard from you, which is, this might not actually be what's happening, but I'm feeling this way, and it's really important that I share that.
Yeah. And
That's so
normally
powerful.
I would have done that. I would not have done that. I would have just kept it to myself. It's very scary, but I did it. And I had a feeling that you would receive it well because of where you're coming from, and your job and kind of your purpose in my life. And, uh, but yes, nonetheless, it's not easy to be honest with people about how you feel when you're doing, I always try to do it in a respectful way. I'm not going to be
Mm-hmm.
an asshole, hopefully,
Well,
but
it's like that Byron Katie. If you know who Byron Katie is,
yeah,
this amazing
absolutely.
therapist.
Yeah. Yeah,
She's, a lot of what she says is this true, or is this not true? Who would I be if it's true?
exactly.
Who would I
Yeah.
be if it's not true? I'm making this thing up, and then being able to like live in the possibility is
Hmm.
so liberating,
Yeah.
because I know that I am not my thoughts and feelings.
Right. That book, the book I read that she wrote is called A Thousand Names for
Mm-hmm.
Joy. That was incredible. Oh my gosh.
Incredible.
Well, my question is, Jamie, like,
Mm-hmm.
how do I'm seeing this as being very true for me, letting it out, expressing it, and then it moves through. But what about people who get stuck in those emotions? Like, is that a thing? Or is that something else? Do you think?
We'll clarify, because I mean, we all do.
Well,
We
like
all get stuck.
yeah, that's true. Maybe you get stuck in this, like what I call negative feedback loop. Like you can't get out into the optimism of life.
Right. I have a very clear, for me, just my own personal work. This is a shout out again to my teacher's teacher, David Data. And he talks about the 3 stages of relating. And the first stage is our trauma. The first stage is our stuff. Our second stage of relating is the present moment. We call it the healthy relating. So you and I right now, we're in the second stage, right?
Hmm.
Third stage is the expression. It's the sacred. So the temper tantrum, or creating art or a dance or a song or something bigger than yourself, is the sacred. We can't get to the sacred without first getting to the healthy. We can't skip the second step, because that'll re-traumatize us. So those of us that are in, and I'm guilty as charged, I'm in my first stage. I've been in my first stage quite often, which is the loop.
Uh-huh.
But for me, what liberated me was that I realized that my loop is my story, is my past. So if I'm in my loop, I'm feeling resentment, means to re-feel in Latin, re-sene, re-feel.
Mm.
So if I'm in my loop, I'm actually not feeling a present thing. I'm feeling a past thing.
Mm.
Grief, sadness, or something in the moment. Somebody punches me in the nose and I'm like, ow, I'm hurt, and I'm feeling that in the moment. That's healthy. But if I say something embarrassing at a party and I'm replaying it all week, oh my God, I'm such an idiot, that's the past.
Mm.
So I
Yeah.
first have to realize and become aware of, in consciousness, that I'm stuck in a past loop of previous trauma, addictions. I'm in the merry-go-round,
Mm.
right? If I were a leaf coming down a stream, I'm in that eddy, I'm in that pool and I'm not moving.
Right.
So I first have to have the consciousness to be aware of that. And then to me, what is a fail-safe way through it outside of people that might have actual chemical issues in the brain, who might be, schizophrenic or bipolar. So I don't mean, if for those of you that need, medication and things like that, I'm not a licensed therapist. So I just have to put that out there. But as a movement coach and as a voice coach, the second stage is bringing myself to the present moment. How do I do that? And actually, it's quite easy. It's through my five senses. So let's just say you and I are in partnership, and you're my partner, and you're like, I hate you, and this, and you're spinning out, or vice versa, or I'm the one spinning out. What David told us, which I thought was so powerful, he says, make a cup of tea and give your partner a cup of tea and feel the heat of the cup. Feel the porcelain and the smoothness of the porcelain. Regulate your breathing. Smell the tea. Maybe put some honey in the tea and taste the honey. First, to get out of the loop, come back to now. And how we experience the now. This is so awesome. When I made this discovery, I was so excited. The senses plus emotions equal sensations. Senses, emotions, sensations is the blend of the two. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's really cool.
So I'm feeling my feeling, but then, okay, now I'm opening myself up. I'm tasting. It's hot. Now I'm getting regulated to the present moment. And the more that I'm here, the more that my story of the past, of the trauma, of the loop begins to let go of me.
Yeah.
And it takes time. It takes time to feel the wind on my face, to eat something, smell, hear, listen to a song, and then actually go, okay, I'm going to try to listen to the lyrics and really pick out the lyrics of the song. That to me is such a fail-safe way, 99% of the time, of getting out of the loop.
That's awesome.
Right? So then once we're in the second stage, then what third stage may happen, which is the sacred, which is maybe finding a way to have a sense of humor about it. So for me, it's like, I'm a big drama queen, as you can't tell. And so I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sad. I'm drowning in my, box of emotions. And you feel it, like, like Anchorman or something. And I'm like, I'm in a box of emotions. And then it starts to dissipate. It starts to express.
Yeah.
So I move really consciously through my loop in my first stage to really being conscious, connected through my five senses in the present stage, and then gently, slowly begin to express through my art, through sense of humor, through play, to move that energy through my body.
Yeah, I love that.
But could you imagine, while you're in your first stage, you're like, fuck Aaron, and then I try to make fun of you?
Oh God.
It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work, and it would be abusive. It would, but we
Yeah.
really need that second stage, and that takes time.
Yeah.
That takes time.
And I bet many people don't know they're in that stage, right? Or know how to navigate that whole thing.
I mean, have you gone on Twitter?
I know. That's what I was thinking.
Have you seen bots and trolls and
yeah. Right. Oh man. Yeah, we're dying to express ourselves, aren't we? Like in a healthy way.
And that's the thing. What's so, to me, that's so sad. But that, and why I feel like this is part of my purpose in the world, is that we're just in these echo chambers.
Yeah. Right.
That the way that our YouTube and our phones go, okay, you like this news source, or you like this thing. And so for me, I purposefully look up things I don't agree with websites. I want to hear what people that I don't necessarily agree with, I want to know what they're saying. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but I want to be open, because what we've lost is the gray. It's black and white. You're with us or you're against us. And, there was an amazing podcast with, Peterson and
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson and what's his name? Russell Brand.
Brand. Okay. Yeah.
And what was so nice is I don't necessarily agree with either of them always, and there are things I agree about, but to watch them have an argument
Yeah.
and listen to each other, have respect, let the other one finish instead of yelling at each other, and discourse
That's refreshing,
is
isn't it?
so refreshing. And I went,
Yeah.
wow, oh
Yeah.
my God, they let the other one like finish their thought. And the other one said, I don't agree with you, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that to me is the only way we're going to
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
heal. And yeah, so.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we have lost that aspect of actually even being able to handle conflict that way. We don't even, as a society, we're going in that direction, and it's a little bit scary because, you know, number one, it's creativity comes from not necessarily agreeing with people, but also seeing part of their side, and then you're like, oh, it opens up you up to new ideas, but doesn't mean you necessarily agree with them wholeheartedly, but there's things that you're open to seeing their way, their
Mm,
perspective. Isn't that the secret to life, is to see people, and just you see life in a different way through other people's eyes, right?
mm.
And
Empathy,
yeah,
the lost art.
yeah, totally. And we can't do that unless we disagree on things. And so if we're agreeing with each other on everything, or acting like we are, then that's very disingenuous. And then we're not living in where's the truth in all of this? Where is the where's the integrity? So maybe these are things that we can help people with.
Mm. I
Yeah.
had to learn. It's so interesting. We're getting into so much like my own personal development work. Um, the imago therapy has been,
Mm,
and the imago dialogue has been a huge part of a healthy relationship.
yeah.
And intentional dialogue, being able to have my partner say things like, you know, here's my feelings, and then I listen and I repeat. And then being able to memorize most of what was said and being able to read back and be like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would imagine that wouldn't feel good. That makes sense. That, and being just to say that makes sense, and then be heard, and then things that I'm like, you did that, and then and her saying that makes sense, and being able to really then, as a practice, feeling what the other person's experience is as best we can, um,
Right.
has really deepened my experience in the world as a teacher, and it makes me love the feedback. Like, you triggered me, and I'm like, oh great, if you're open, I want to hear why,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
so, and that's where, and then also what the last part of the imago dialogue, which is so important, is the praise, is the last part. It's just like, I want to praise you for sharing with me your feelings. I want to praise you for your courage. I want to praise you for um, being so direct and honest. And we don't. And I love how those stages go. But be like really looking at somebody else, going, "Wow, I really know that you're doing your best," and having that
Yeah.
just be my overall belief in my life, that I just believe people are really doing their best, and how that just changes my perspective every day.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful way to look at it. I like that too, especially when you're in a relationship with somebody. Instead of trying to change them or make them someone they're not, or having
Mm,
this story about them, you're realizing that they are doing their best, and sometimes it's your perspective that could
mm.
change about the situation, right? And like, I think being seen and heard in a relationship is very important too. Like, I think that is like so valuable in any relationship. So um yeah, we all want to be seen and heard. We all want to feel like we belong somewhere. So if we're meeting those needs for our partners and the people we love in our life, I think that's so special. Yeah.
What are you feeling?
Well, I don't know. This may be more longer than the time we have, but like connecting your voice with your with your purpose. And that's kind of what came to mind just a minute ago, and how we do that, and I think you probably described much of how you do that by the embodiment factor and feeling and getting into that part of it. But like, if we're going to be using our voice for a bigger on a bigger platform.
One of the things that I talk about in my voice work is maybe somebody else has done this, but I feel like I've invented it in my own way, where I've done a lot of work with, John Wineland and finding our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But then I see people say their purpose statements, but they're not connected to it. And mantra and the idea of being able to really open and connect to that purpose and saying it and feeling it and believing it.
Right.
That, because it's interesting, as you just not just like in embodiment practice and connection practice with self, you can say that, like, your purpose statement to yourself, and as you begin to really, really go deep and connect, people will feel it. They'll feel your presence in the world. Like, you're finding your purpose. You don't have to tell anyone what your purpose is, but if you are, reiterating that to yourself, then, that's something. I did this in an exercise with the other men and the other teachers in John's group, and I had them do this long voice warm up, and then I had each of them state and speak their purpose statement, and to get it out of their throat, like to get it into their legs, and they changed. So that was something that was interesting. That might be a little esoteric. We could also talk about shadow too. So
yeah, I like the purpose thing,
okay.
because that actually, I from what Maddie's taught me, I know that purpose is more of a masculine quality anyway, right? But we all have it. We all kind of, of course, we all have a masculine and
Of
feminine.
course.
But purpose is something we're all taught to kind of try to find, right? But I feel like it's a lot of people are lost and don't always feel like they can connect to that.
Right. And then having a voice, you'll feel, and this is one of the things that's in my so much of my work, is when we speak, and we know what we can feel what's true.
Yeah.
You could say, I usually have people say two thoughts, and like, which one feels more true? It's like, my friend, she broke up with me because I'm a piece of shit, or she broke up with me because we weren't a right fit. Which one sounds more true? Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes, like, I can talk about this a little bit. Like, for instance, I've shifted my purpose for the rest of the year. I usually live this really kind of purpose in the world. And for the last 3 months of this year, my purpose is to treat myself with absolute compassion, forgiveness, and love. And that's my purpose, is to just be as gentle and as kind with myself as I can the rest of this year. And not that I'm not going to go do my work, but there's a feeling where I'm like, our purpose shifts, and David talks about it. David Data talks about it. But there's something about being able to go, this is my intention. This is what because if you're not asking for what you want, how do you know if you're ever going to get it?
Right.
Right. So having a voice and being able to go, my purpose is to, I have a real estate agent I just worked with. I work with 3 times a month, and we found her purpose statement. And her purpose statement was to live her best life while helping others find their forever home in which they can live the same. And
love that.
right. So then, and she just like lit up when I said it. And she's like, oh my God, I love to eat well and I love to travel. And I'm like, but don't you realize that being a real estate agent, you could find people their home where they're going to spend the majority of their life.
Yeah.
And you're helping them live their best life by creating not just a house, but a home. And she's like, oh my God, that's true. And so when she goes out on her real estate agent, when she's meeting with people and doing all the work, but if she's really believing, she's like, like giving love and helping them find a beautiful thing in their life. It's not just numbers.
Yeah.
And when she said that, she's like, I've never understood what a purpose was. And then when we kind of sculpted it together, she's like, that feels so good. So
Yeah.
while I'm living my best life, I'm helping people turn their house into a home in which they can do the same. And I was like, that's it. That's an amazing purpose.
Yeah. That's amazing that you helped her connect that, because, you know, it could, many people, I think, just keep going about their day, and it's a numbers thing, or they're in their head. And it sounds like you
Mm-hmm.
helped her get from her head to her heart and
Yeah.
connect with why she was doing it. So it really doesn't matter what we're doing. It really matters if we're connecting with it, right?
And if we're in alignment with it,
Yes,
it's, there's like,
exactly.
my purpose is to be a millionaire. And it's like, when I feel that out of like a 1 to a 10, like, not that I wouldn't mind $1 million.
Yeah.
Don't forget, like, I love $1 million, but if that was my
Right.
purpose, it may be a 2 or a 3 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
But to me, to be able to cultivate my artistry while helping others, fulfill their artistic dreams.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's an amazing purpose. And then, I put a price tag on my time, and, I do all of those things, but that gets me up in the morning. That
Yeah.
gets me to the gym. That gets me to a 12-step meeting. That gets me to my meditation mat. That gets me to um, proofreading my email before I send it out. Like, it's how I do one thing is how I do everything. So being able to go, it was so interesting, like when I was like really grinding my purpose to like achieve, and something, I just got really tired, especially after my son being 5 months old. And I just went, my purpose, I can come back to it, but there's a different purpose right now. And that is to really explore and feel and express compassion
Mm.
and gentleness and kindness. I'm still getting up and go to work. I'm still, doing a podcast with you. But when I said that, my whole body, I got goosebumps on
Mm.
my arms. And I went, for 3 months, and I'll revisit my purpose in January. But I was like, that's it. That's what I'm, tenderness.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, when my voice opened up, I felt, that felt really good.
Yeah. It's a relief, it sounds like, too, because it's like, oh, I don't have to, I can actually, the purpose can be dynamic, and it can change with where I'm at that moment, right?
Mm-hmm. I
I
mean, there's
love
thing about
that.
athletes.
Yeah.
There's a difference between. This is so interesting. Let's think of like Michael Jordan and
Mhm.
Charles Barkley. And Michael Jordan achieved more as a player. Both were great players, but Charles Barkley, I think, has been, his purpose has kind of been really amazing. I think he came more into his own as a
Commentator?
TV commentator than
Mhm.
ever an athlete. I mean, even though he was an
Absolutely.
amazing
His
athlete.
personality came out, right? Yeah.
Right. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
his part, and it's like, we're still cultivating our purposes. And I see people that, were living really bright until they were 30, and then they lost their way. So
Mm.
it's really important to, listen. You don't force it. Like, I'll ask, the universe, I'll say, oh, what am I meant to do this next year? What would be the highest good? And I listen. And there was a
Yeah.
big gap between, my last purpose and this purpose. And that's why I went through a kind of a dark time. And I was like, I feel like I'm not resonating with it. And David Data talks about it. He goes, sometimes our purposes die and that they're
Mm.
reborn. And to really sit with the space in between and like have the winter. And when I said it, I would say, and by the way, it took me a while to get to the purpose I have currently. I would say my purpose is to blank. And I'm like, no, it's kind of like going in at a clothing store and you're putting on clothes and you're like,
Yeah.
you see the montage in the romantic comedy and you're trying on the different suit or the different dress and you're like, nope. Your friend goes, nope. And then when, the perfect suit or the perfect dress, you go, this is the one.
Yeah.
And your
I like
voice will
that.
tell you, your body will tell you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I like how you said, when you say something, you can feel that it's true. And that's so true because even like when you're relating to other people and you're telling yourself a story, and it's the same thing, deep down, okay, this is bullshit. I don't, I know this is
Yeah.
bullshit, but I'm still saying it. Right. So I think it's the same with their purpose. Like you're saying, like it can change. It can be dynamic as we grow, as we, like you just had a child that changes everything.
Hmm.
That changes your purpose big time. And then your purpose will again evolve into something else. But it's really, I think it's so important to recognize that with athletics too,
Mm.
and how we're staying in shape, and because that constantly changes too. For me, that changes all the time. Like right now, I'm getting back to doing splits again, like I was when I was a gymnast, and that is pretty painful. I'm like, it's been 20 years since I've really worked on splits. And after I had two kids, I was like, okay, I don't think I'm gonna ever do splits again. But then for whatever reason, my my heart, my intuition started saying,
Mm.
hey, let's start getting back into some of these moves that you trained your body to do so long ago,
Mm.
within reason. I'm not going to get up on a balance beam and do anything up there, but start kind of, because my body, I think, still craves that kind of thing because that's how I trained it to be at a very young age. And so to some extent it needs some of that kind of stimulation. So anyway, where I was going with that is now my purpose has changed as far as uh like what maybe I intended to do. I reached those goals and then I changed it over to something else. But life purpose is changes, like depending on what phase we're in, obviously, and
Mm.
midlife is a big one for sure. I've
And
definitely,
we
yeah.
see that with people, and I'm not to call out my brothers here, like men, where I'm like midlife crisis.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
they're like, I don't want to have to go within and see what my limitations are, and I'm like, oh well, I'm going to buy the Ferrari or the Porsche, and I'm going to do, start dating somebody half my age. It's like, and that to me, I have no judgment against,
Yeah.
any of that, but the men in the men's work, it's being able to really take stock. They're so interesting, like constantly taking stock of where I am. I've actually really enjoyed getting older. I'm 42 now, and realizing that it's like letting certain things die, letting certain things go. Maybe I'm not wanting to be the jet setter around the world. And it feels different now. I want to be, I want to teach around the world. I want to create
Yeah.
around the world, and I want my family to come with me. It's
Yeah.
different, and for me, it's better.
Yeah.
It's better. And I also feel like having yin purposes and yang purposes is important. And I just happen to be in a yin purpose right now. And
Yeah.
I'm usually creating art and theater, and I took the fall off from any kind of project, and I'm just redoing my website. I'm redoing all of my stuff, and I'm tinkering. I'm going back into uh, the workshop, and that's okay.
Hmm.
The quiet is okay. Like it, I don't, and I, having to talk about our voice, is that it's okay sometimes to not to be listening, and
Yeah.
not just outputting and posting every one of my meals on on Instagram.
Right.
That it's like, be a mystery. Like sometimes go dark. It's okay. And
Yeah.
so then the few times I have done social media cleanses, like where I've been off for a couple of, when I've come back, the the things that I've had to say to me have felt like they've had more of an impact.
Right. It takes a lot of courage and to do that. Actually, I think for people, it's kind of can be a little, it can create anxiety to be with that quietness and to sit with it and to see what comes up. But I think that reflection time is so important.
Mm.
So I totally agree with you. And that's the only way you're really going to tap into that purpose at that moment and where you are in life and connect with that, I think, for sure. And
Mm.
it's important because I think, like you're saying, like sometimes we need to just realize that actually we don't want what we thought we wanted anymore. It's
Mhm.
changed, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah. So thank
Mm.
you so
You're
much,
welcome.
Jamie.
This
I
has been
really
great.
appreciate it. Please do me a favor and tell my listeners, let
Mhm.
them know how they can find you, what you're offering, and anything else you got in the mix here. As far as,
Amazing.
of course, the workshop we're doing in New York. And
Oh my God, I'm
yeah,
so excited. I'm so excited about
me
that. I
too.
think there's 4 spots left for the archetype, Jungian embodied archetype with Madeline Moon, November 15th through the 17th in Manhattan. I'm really excited. I love New York. I went to grad school out there. I work obviously with people privately. I also teach an online course. I do about 2 or 3 a year that are about 5 to 6 weeks. I think the next one won't be until January. I
Okay.
teach an acting class Tuesday nights in Los Angeles. And is there anything else that I'm offering at the moment? I usually do packages of coaching, which is purpose coaching, purpose mapping, voice work, masculine and feminine, uh, from the work I've done with John and the work I've done with Stuart Pearce and Nancy Mayans, my master's degree. So, I do a free consultation. So if anyone's interested, and they want to just meet me and do a free half hour, you can follow me at Wollrab on Instagram, which I'm on mostly, and that's WOLLRAB. And I have my studios, which is at Jamie Wollrab Studios. I'm not a Twitter person because I
Yeah.
can't, it's noise to me. I can't
Hmm.
find anything. And my website is jamiewollrab.com. That's JAMIE WOLLRAB. And if they want to email me, they can do it through my website. It goes
Okay.
Squarespace. So it goes right to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure and an honor.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is so much fun.
Yeah.
All right. It's great to meet all your people.
Yeah. All right. Thanks,
All right.
Jamie.
Have a
Bye.
good night. Bye
You
bye.
too.